You've had an opportunity to review the agenda. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the December 7th meeting agenda.
By Mr. Spahn, second by Mr. Smith. And I'd like to note for the record that Ms. McConduit was present at the time of that vote.
Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, that motion passes. Next, we have had an opportunity, I hope you have, to review the meeting minutes from October the 12th, 2022. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So by Mr. Jackson and second by Mr. Salah.
Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Madam Chairwoman, I'd like to note for the record that we have had no requests for public comment at the time of the start of the meeting.
Very good. Next, you can review the consent agenda items for consideration by the board.
Chair, if there are no requests to remove any items from consent agenda, I'll provide the recommendation. Staff recommends that the board approve the consent agenda, which consists of items F1 through F6.
Is there a motion?
So Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. Spahn.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, that motion passes. Next, I'd like to call on Francesca, who has a special guest with us today, her mother, who she has not seen in 5 years, I think. So would you like to say a few words? And we certainly welcome her.
Hello, everyone. So I brought my mom here. We haven't seen each other in 5 years since I moved to the United States. So I'm pretty much dragging her with me everywhere. The school system don't work in Venezuela like they work here. So I wanted her to see what am I doing and how it works. So I want to introduce my mom. She's in the back. Her name is Yalitza.
Stan.
She's my role model, and I'm so happy that she was able to come. She's only going to be with me for a few months, but it's totally worth it.
We certainly all, on behalf of the board, welcome you, and I'm so happy you're with us to celebrate our outstanding student supervisor who's done a wonderful job. Also, I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize Tim Hardy, who, on behalf of the board, I want to congratulate you, Tim, for being appointed the vice chair of the ACCT Board of Trustees. Now, the significance of that is that he will be one day soon the actual chair. And when we have our big ACCT meeting in New Orleans, right, Tim? That's it. Yeah. So we're just so proud of you. You continue to give an overwhelming amount of time to further the mission of community and technical colleges nationally as part of ACCT, but more importantly, what he has already done and continues to do for our system here so much. Do you want to add anything to that, Tim?
I just want to say briefly, there are three people I have to thank, and that is, they are Katie and Quentin and Sarah, who led my first national campaign. I went kind of kicking and screaming, but what you did was absolutely awesome. You've energized me, and the other thing I'm going to disclose to you is Dr. Sullivan called and explained to me that I had to put myself out to do it. It is truly an honor, and I just want to thank this board for all the support you have given me.
Thank you, Tim, so much. So also events of note we want to talk about, which is December 19th, the Nunez Testing and Career Counseling Center groundbreaking in Chalmette. And I know we'll hear from Ms. Klein-Peter as a little reminder, or RSVP on all of these that I'm going to cover with you. February the 3rd at 8:30 to 3, the Career and Technical Education Summit in Baton Rouge at the Marriott. February 4th through the 8th will be the ACCT 23 National Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C. March 22nd through the 24th, our ACC Governance Leadership Institute, which will be in New Orleans. And then our Skills USA is going to be in Alexandria, April the 2nd through the 8th. So Sarah will follow up with us on all those dates, but I'll test you. I may ask you if you can recite all I just said, huh, Stevie? Okay, next we're going to have our president's report. Dr. Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And in addition to all of the dates that you see listed for those events, it is also commencement season. And so I encourage each one of you, as you have an opportunity to attend your local commencement, go and hear the stories, because it is truly the stories of our students that drive this mission. And as we talk to business partners all across the state and across the country, having an opportunity to be a part of that commencement exercise and to see the emotion that comes from individuals accomplishing something that they perhaps are the first in their families to accomplish. Take the time to join that commencement exercise just to be reminded of how powerful this mission is that we have an opportunity to work in every day. As part of our President's Report, we get an opportunity to thank and to congratulate those who are participating in our professional development efforts. Supervisor Murphy, I believe it was in about 2013-14, when Supervisor Murphy said to me, coming into this role, we need to take care of our people. We need to ensure that our employees within this system have opportunities for advancement and opportunities to learn. One of those is the LLA, Louisiana Leadership Academy. And today we have a graduating class of LLA members. If you would, please stand and be recognized. I want you to take a look at the faces here, because you are very likely to see these leaders again right here at this table going forward, doing great things as we continue to advance the mission of community and technical colleges right here in Louisiana. Thanks to each one of you for taking the time away from home, away from your day job, away from all the things that we know take time. You invested in this effort over the last year, and I know each one of you are getting a great deal out of it. I look forward to celebrating with you this afternoon as we have a little commencement exercise and an opportunity to just share some fellowship and time together. So thank you to each one of you. Next, we have a partner in Southwest Energy and an individual that is no stranger to this board, someone who sat on this side of the dais for a number of years and understands this organization as well as anyone out there. We have with us today Mr. Tommy Clark. Tommy is representing Southwest Energy, and today I'd like to ask Quentin Taylor if he would join Tommy at the table and talk a little bit about the relationships that have developed. Also would like to ask if we have, I believe, Chancellor Metter, Chancellor Aspinwall, and I think I'm missing one, Quentin. Dr. Bateman is not here. He's ill this morning. So prayers for Dr. Bateman, by the way. He was on the road on the way here, did not feel well. Texted me this morning. So for those of you that know, Chancellor Bateman would be right here at this table this morning if he could. So if you don't mind, if the chancellors would join Mr. Taylor and Tommy Clark at the table. Perhaps if you'd like to kick off, and then we'll go down the line. Mr.
Certainly,
Taylor.
it kind of felt like musical chairs. Members of the board, Dr. Sullivan, thank you for the opportunity to present this really great and awesome collaboration and initiative that we've talked about a little bit, but this is the first time for this group to come before the board and really go into detail about the partnership. As you all know, we set out on the MJ Foster Promise work a little over 2 years ago. Last session, that work became official with approval through the legislature, supported unanimously. The governor, speaker, and president were the co-authors of the bill. And I believe, Dr. Sullivan, every member of the legislature co-signed that bill, which shows you the priority that it is for workforce development and making sure that adults have access to the training that we do. And so with that, as part of the LCTCS Foundation, we set out to raise $5 million to support the MJ Foster work. The goals for that was to, number one, make sure that we reach people where they are and market this important work or this project. Number two, make sure that we had the infrastructure in place to provide the training that's necessary. And then number three, to make sure that our colleges had the support that they needed from a personnel perspective. And so with that, Tommy Clark and the folks at Southwestern Energy reached out and we met a couple of different times. Myself, Dr. Metter, Dr. Aspinwall, Dr. Bateman, and our colleague Renee Centron. So that's important because Renee died 1 year ago yesterday. So I apologize for that. At any rate, we met, great conversations, and the good people at Southwestern Energy stepped up with a $300,000 contribution. And they wanted to work specifically with colleges in their markets. And so that's why Sewella, BIPSI, and Northwest was a part of those discussions. And so with that, I will turn it over to Tommy Clark. He'll talk more about their partnership. And then I'll ask the chancellor to say a few words about the projects in terms of scope of work at the colleges.
It looks different from that side of the table, right?
It does. It does. Thank you for the invitation to join you today, Chairman Mount, Assistant President Sullivan, former colleagues, supervisors, new ones. Pleasure to be here this morning. Joining me from Southwestern Energy is Sean Burke. Sean is the general manager for the Haynesville division up in Northwest Louisiana. Just very quickly, Southwestern Energy is probably the second largest natural gas producer in the United States. We're the largest producer in the Haynesville. So a lot of the news that you hear in the global world about meeting energy demand and the Haynesville Shale is the tip of the spear for LNG exports. We provide a tremendous amount of natural gas for the LNG export sector. Coming into this division, after 2 acquisitions into the Haynesville about this time last year, we recognized the fact that there was a great need for our workforce in the future. And there was no better partner than the LCTCS and the 3 institutions that we partnered with, of course, BIPSI in our backyard, Northwest, but also Sewella, which is, also the tip of the spear for LNG exports. So we figured those were 3 great partners that could help us expand and advance our career opportunities for our workforce needs now and into the future. So we're delighted to be a partner with the system and look forward to a great partnership. I'm gonna let Sean just introduce himself real quick. I think he was one of the people that met early on and kind of had the vision as well.
If you speak into it, it'll light up for you.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Tommy. Again, I mean, this is something that Southwestern's very proud to be part of, a partner with the institutions, and it's an investment for us, right? We can be part of the helping your institutions to generate great employees, and that's really what we're hoping to do here. So, thank you.
Thank you. Perhaps we'll start with Chancellor Aspinwall and then transition to Chancellor Metter.
Tommy and Sean, I want to tell you how much Sewella appreciates this and the system appreciates it. And President Sullivan, Chairman Mount, this is very timely. We're reminded every day that we're in the workforce development business. And as Tommy said, LNG is big in Southwest Louisiana. And one of the things that makes it very important to Sewella is Sewella does not participate in the federal student loan program. So our students depend heavily upon scholarships. For our PTech program, industrial instrumentation, industrial electrical, this is going to help those students meet the expenses of college. We all know that there's more expenses than just tuition. There's life expenses that these students need. So this is going to help our students tremendously to start, to retain those students, graduate those students, and then put them into the workforce for you. So we really appreciate this.
We're on the mic today. I would ditto everything my colleague has stated about this, but I wanted to add a different point to this that makes this donation so special. Many companies come to us and they know there's a workforce problem, so they throw money at us. That's not what has happened here. Our first meeting took place over a year ago in Stonewall, Louisiana, and we sat down and Renee Centron led the conversation about the academic challenges that we face. And since that time, I know that you visit our campus a couple of times. You've been to our Mansfield campus, to Minden. You've spent the time to understand our students, and it gave us a chance to understand your needs. And that's why I know this is an initiative that's going to go forward and really make a difference, because we're working together and we're finding the nuances of training and the generations we're trying to recruit. We're working together to make something special here. So this is really going to go to good use for our students, for the system, and for your company. Thank you.
But if we take a picture, I believe we have a check, right? So Chair Mount, if you would, could you join me? And we'll
Sure.
take a picture.
I'm sorry,
In or
Roman. Get up and get in the picture. That's right.
You again to Tommy and to Sean and the team at Southwest. I want to go back if we can one item or two in the agenda and ask if Domingo, if you would please stand. Folks, sometimes you show up to work as Domingo does every day, on time, ready to roll, get the job done. And sometimes you're asked to do a job that wasn't what you thought you were going to do when you get to work, right, Domingo? Today, Domingo is helping to remove the language barrier for Francesca's mother. So Domingo, thank you for showing up to work and being willing to help in every way that you can. You've always been a team player, and we're excited to have you as a part of the organization. Thank you, sir. All right, moving on to the next item on the president's report. We do have advocacy meetings coming up. We'll have that that schedule has been shared with you as board members. I would urge you to take the time to join us for those advocacy meetings. We are going into the final session of this term for this seated House and Senate, as well as this governor's final legislative session. It is an interesting time, as it always is, as you reach the end of an administration moving into an election cycle. So we look forward to having you as board members and a number of our business partners join us for those advocacy meetings. Let's also turn, if we can, to the round the horn, I guess, maybe as we call it, and have an opportunity to celebrate some of the great successes that are going on out there all across our colleges. Let's start at Bossier Parish Community College, where it's winter session enrollment. I want you to think of this. 5 years ago, I believe it was, Bossier Parish Community College started a winter session that begins in November and runs through January. Not typical for our colleges, right? We typically have an August start, a January start. Bossier Parish Community College really pushed the envelope here. This past winter term, they were up 75% from the prior year's term in winter term enrollment. That tells you that when people think about, I need another course, their first thought is my local community college, or in some cases, not so much local. because we're seeing students from all across the state enrolling. I believe Chancellor Bateman's colleagues around the room are taking note of that 75% because some of them may live in places like Chalmette and Gonzales and Sorrento, right? So I think there's a bit of competition involved here at some level. We'll hopefully see some of that shared around the system. Moving now to Nunez Community College, which the college has been actively engaged with business and industry partners in planning for the emerging wind energy sector developing in Southeast Louisiana. On November 10th, Nunez entered into a global partnership, not just global in terms of St. Bernard Parish, but global truly, as you think about the shift that is occurring in this, not just in this country, but internationally around the energy sector. It was Nunez Community College signing a letter of intent with Energy Innovation of Norway to develop a GWO, I'll just stick with that. How about that? Curriculum, training center for construction and maintenance of on and offshore wind turbines. Nunez anticipates offering GWO courses in Q3 of 2023. Congratulations, Chancellor Tenney, on an incredible partnership. We look forward to seeing the fruits of this labor. Also, let's turn to Central Louisiana Technical Community College, where I got to tell you, I don't know, they're wearing the bank out where they're cashing checks in Central Louisiana. The Coughlin Saunders Foundation has invested $150,000 over 3 years for practical nursing retention and completion scholarships. Additionally, at the college, the Alexandria Business Foundation invested $300,000 at Central Louisiana Technical Community College into their business department for multiple scholarships. And the first ever endowed professorship at Central Louisiana Technical Community College. College will also be seeking matching funds from the Board of Regents at an equal amount of $300,000. In addition to that, one more here. The Rapides Foundation has awarded Central Louisiana Technical Community College $540,000 for expansion of allied health programs in conjunction with Bossier Parish Community College to expand the practical nursing program in the Natchitoches area and in several other campuses. Congratulations to Chancellor Sawtelle and the team at Central. Now we turn to North Shore Technical Community College, where Chancellor Wainwright has been nominated to serve as board president of the St. Tammany Corporation Board of Commissioners. St. Tammany Corporation is the economic development organization for the parish and leads Greater North Shore regional economic development initiatives in collaboration with state and local economic development entities. Chancellor Wainwright, a well-deserved honor for you, and we know that in your leadership over the next year, that organization will thrive, no doubt. Congratulations. At Sewella Technical Community College, the college has been ranked 10th nationally by Diverse Magazine for the top producer of engineering technology degree program graduates. Let that sink in for a second. Right here in Louisiana, at, as Tommy called it a few minutes ago, the tip of the spear for LNG, you have the number 10 producer of diversity graduates from programs at Sewella Technical Community College. Very proud of that. Chancellor Aspinwall and the team there continue the good work. With that, there is a video that we'd like to show that gives a little bit of a sense of what success looks like at Sewella Technical Community College. Katie, I believe we're prepared. If you guys are, we'll go ahead and roll the video.
Are doing our best to get the video go.
October is a month of awareness for multiple causes, one of those being National Disability Employment. It's a time used to highlight the contributions of people with disabilities to workplaces. Tonight, KPLC's Marcella Quandra brings us the story of DeMarcus Thomas, an aspiring welder.
This is what a typical welding class at Sewella sounds like. For DeMarcus Thomas, the class sounds more like this.
So I was born November 5th. At 6 months, I became deaf.
His mother, Karen Thomas, says he's not let it defeat him.
He was always willing, you know, trying to do everything. Even though he was deaf, that didn't stop him.
Now DeMarcus finds himself in his third semester of the welding program at Sewella.
We got organized with student services to have the interpreter set up, and on the first day of school we sat down with DeMarcus, the interpreters, and his mother, and we kind of hashed out how the program was going to go, how we were set up.
So in the beginning, the professors, Starbone and Devin, they would give me books so I could read through to make sure that I fully understand how to do the weld. That way I'm able to explain it better.
Art gap, good. Just keep them a little bit straighter.
So it's good as big wise.
It involved working as a team.
The team has just come along so good, and I'm happy about that because it makes him happy and it makes him want to come to school.
They help. They observe a lot of my work, and they tell me when I'm doing a good job. You know, they get excited and they motivate me.
With an interpreter by his side, DeMarcus had this final message.
Deaf people and hearing people, they're the same. They're the exact same. They can accomplish anything they want.
At your service, Marcelo Quadra, KPLC 7 News.
We did ask his mother what she hopes people get from this story, and she says she hopes people see that deaf people can do amazing things in life. She also says she hopes that parents realize they can push their children and be there for them. Chief Meteorologist Wade Hampton.
Wow, that's good. You know, Supervisor Hardy, I'm reminded of a story that I've heard you tell a number of times right here at Baton Rouge Community College, when we had a young man who walked up to Supervisor Hardy, had no idea why he was participating. And when Supervisor Hardy asked that young man, "What do you do?" He sticks his chest out and says, "I'm a welder." And what you see in that young man is a pride that comes from having overcome so much, but also from having succeeded. He succeeded, and you can see it on his face. You can also see it on his mother's face. Very special. Chancellor, thank you so much for sharing that piece, and thank our friends at the local television affiliate as well. Yes, sir.
I just couldn't agree with Dr. Sullivan more, but I do want to add to that story that he just told. Not only did he stand up so proudly and poke his chest out and tell me he was a welder, he had an identity. Next question he asked is, "And who are you?"
No doubt, no doubt. Very well done. All right, with that, let's turn to the final item that I have on the president's report. I'd like to ask Chancellor Tinney, if she will, to please come forward and share a bit of a story of what's going on at Nunez Community College. Historically, all of us, as we have attended post-secondary education over the last X number of years, I will call it 10 years. How about that to make all of us feel a little bit better this morning? We had this process whereby we would register in classes, and then we were told, go down to the bookstore and purchase books, right? What we've learned across time is the market tells us that about 56% of students actually buy a textbook. In many instances, it's because students can't afford those textbooks. In some instances, it's because the student thinks, I've got a decision to make. I think I'd rather keep that money in my pocket than spend it. What we have learned is that access to those materials makes all the difference in the world in a student's success. And so when we learned of this initiative, we learned about the possibilities, went to Chancellor Tinney, someone who among this Chancellor group is well respected, someone who will implement with fidelity. Chancellor Tinney picked this item up and ran with it quickly. I'm not going to steal the thunder. I want you to have the opportunity to talk about the initiative. So with that, turn it over to you, Chancellor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sullivan. Good morning, Chairman Mount, Dr. Sullivan, members of the board. I'm excited to share where we are in the relationship with Follett Bookstore as a college. As Dr. Sullivan mentioned, the affordability and the access to textbooks is a barrier for some students. And I would like to give you a bit of context before I get into the status of the relationship. Each semester in the fall, I do a series of chancellor chats where I meet with different groups of students, faculty, and staff. And this semester, we started in September, going round robin and asking the students a few things, their experience with the college admissions. But one question that I always end with is, if you were me and there was one thing that you could do that would improve the student experience, what would it be? And this semester particularly, there was a theme among all groups, and it was to address our issue with books. So we had a relationship with a bookstore, but in some instances, we learned that there were students who 2-3 weeks into a semester still did not have access to books, which is completely unacceptable. So timing is everything. And we were in the process of exploring a relationship with a new book vendor. And during that time, I received a phone call from Dr. Sullivan, who was also having conversations with Follett to see how we could improve the students' access. I want to provide to you some concrete information, though, as well in that context. What has developed in these conversations with Follett is the First Day Access Initiative. So our team started in quite a heavy lift, and I can't say enough about the work that has been done by our team over at Nunez, and thank the system office as well. Missy LaCour, Joe Marine have been instrumental in terms of making this work. And thank you, Dr. Sullivan, for bringing this forward. But there's conversations, standing meetings every week for us to do this in a very tight window of time for January 17th, so that every student who begins will have not only their textbooks, but also a bundle of all of the required instructional materials. Price was negotiated, and it will be a per credit hour fee that for the semester, for the spring semester only. We appreciate the support of LCTCS to make this available so that we can get data related to the number of credit hours a student enrolls for our enrollment impact, the completion and success of the student throughout the course of the term. But in terms of that concrete information, just to give you an idea of what this means, for a student who is registering for 15 credit hours in our nursing program, that student will be charged $392. For a student registering for 15 credit hours in the culinary program, $392. Welding, $392. That same student in nursing who would have registered for that same series of courses would have had a cost of $1,058.29 for the required text, materials, and supplies. The culinary student would have had a cost of $1,091.76. And for welding, it was less at 15, but still $700 for that same sequence of courses. So we're looking forward to the data for the success of the pilot, but this translates also to our partnerships. K-12, the dual enrollment, will also realize a prediction of about 25% less in terms of the materials for the students. So we are truly excited and grateful for this opportunity to bring this pilot forward to our students. It has transcended across campus in order to make this happen. Our institutional research is working to provide data. Our business office is working for streamlining the reconciliation process to move this forward, and our communications team will be inundating from today on all of our students to let our continuing students and any prospective students and community understand what the value of this means in terms of entering into higher education at our institution. So again, I would like to say thank you very much, Dr. Sullivan, and certainly to the board. We are thrilled to be able to provide this access, but also this equity. Sometimes we talk about access and equity and it's buzzwords, and this truly is giving us the opportunity to put those words into action for our students. And so we look forward to seeing the results of that action. And I will turn it over to Joe to add anything. And again, to say thank you to the system office. They've been tremendous. Thank you.
With that presentation, the only thought that came to my mind as a parent of 4 children that have gone through our community college system is the 56% that maybe don't have their books, but then those that actually go out and try to get them on the cheap with the right ISBN number to find that they get the wrong edition, right? That makes no sense or is of no use to your students. So I look forward to this initiative. We're looking at it in terms of obviously as a pilot at Chalmette, but this could be anywhere. This could be Young Memorial in Morgan City. This could be Abbeville. This could be Mansfield. We all have these students out there that we need to take care of. So I'm looking forward to the results that will come out of this initiative.
Very good. I do want to point out one quick item because it is a really important one. Nothing about this scenario guides or changes the selection of a textbook. The faculty have already had the opportunity to identify their textbook. This is a matter of how we deliver that textbook to the student. So be really clear. This is not in any way pushing in one direction or another of what material should be used, but instead making sure that students have on day one the materials they need to learn. The cost of this pilot is somewhere in about $250,000, but to the students at Nunez Community College, you will not pay for textbooks in the spring 2023 semester. That's a big deal, guys. Thank you to Chancellor Tenney and her team for their willingness to grab a hold of this one and run with it. We look forward to bringing back to this board a fee structure in the June timeframe that will drive down the cost of textbooks across all 12 colleges for all students in the state of Louisiana. Thank you, Chancellor. Any questions from board members?
My question you just answered. I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I don't remember that. But what's the timing for implementing this pilot program system wide? And you've answered that just now. So,
well, you will recall that you will recall, some board members may not recall this, but in 2011, we were successful in passing a bill. Senator Mike Walsworth at the time sponsored that bill that created an electronic materials fee structure that pushed that responsibility for approval of that fee to this board rather than the legislature. Now, that was in 2011. It's taken us that long, about 10 years, to figure out exactly how to make this thing maneuver in a way that benefits students. So that's one of the reasons why we're very excited about it. We've been working on it for a number of years. Joe and I were kidding on Monday morning. I think Joe had hair when he wrote the last RFP, right?
I was a hippie when we started.
That's right.
3 kids in elementary school at that time.
But we are certainly looking forward to providing those kinds of opportunities. It will require time. This is not an item that is going to be stood up at all 12 colleges come fall of 23. It will take time to work our way through the bookstore relationships that exist. But I can tell you this, when students get excited and faculty get excited, we will see people voting with their feet and moving in droves in this direction. So Chancellor, thank you for your work in making this work on behalf of all of our students. Any other questions before we move forward? I'd like to turn, if I can, for a moment of personal privilege to Supervisor Mickey Murphy, who would like to share some thoughts with you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Many years ago, in the early 80s, I had the opportunity to serve as an honor to serve as the commander of Magic City Post 24 of the American Legion in Bogalusa, Louisiana. At that time, we had 840 members. Today marks the 83rd anniversary of Pearl Harbor, known as Pearl Harbor Day. Of that 840 members, 800 were WW2 veterans, having served during the war. As I speak to you this morning, we have one member left who is WW2. Pearl Harbor Day became known as a day forever in, how you say it, infamy, a day of infamy. I take this point of privilege to say to each of you, let's always remember those veterans of all of our wars, especially those from WW2. Tom Brokaw wrote a book some years ago of the greatest generation. They're about gone, folks. And let's never forget there are so many sacrifices. Thank you, Mr. President.
Very well said. Very well said. All right, that concludes the President's report. I'd like to turn now to our board development segment. This is, if you don't mind, I'll tell a little quick story. I think the board is aware of this, but a number of weeks ago, we were having a discussion about infrastructure, all of the infrastructure projects that are flowing down from the federal government. And the question becomes really simple. Who's going Who's going to construct those projects? Who's going to build bridges and roads and levees? And who's going to help us to work with our friends at CPRA as we rebuild Louisiana's coastline? As we sort of thought through that, we kicked around an idea here internally, keyword internally, that we might create something that we would refer to as Louisiana's Infrastructure Skills Academy to address those skills needs that are out there. Well, the idea sort of got legs faster than any of us imagined that it would. And I think it was about a month ago, the White House, yes, the White House in Washington, D.C., that White House, they convened a meeting of individuals to look at the infrastructure issue. And as part of that meeting, they put out a press release. And right there, smack dab in the middle of the press release, is a reference to Louisiana's Infrastructure Skills Academy. And so I share that story with you just simply to say, sometimes good ideas just take off and run on their own. This morning, we have with us Susie Showen, who will give us an update on where we stand with the Louisiana Infrastructure Skills Academy and give you a little more of the information and background. So with that, I'll turn to you, Susie.
Do I need to do anything to get the PowerPoint up? He's pulling it up. Okay, good. Need to point it somewhere else. Okay, very good. Thank you all. Good morning, and I'm really glad to be here to talk to you about this. And I'm going to start with sort of the scary part of the story. And this is something I think that all of us know is a profound challenge at this point. And we do need to be on the, yes, there we go. I just want to talk through the workforce challenge that we are confronting very briefly. And I've been using this slide for a few months now, and every time I update it, I wonder if I'm going to have to take out that historically word in that first line there about the unemployment rate, but not yet. It just keeps ticking down. And one of the rules of thumb that people often use is that unemployment rates lower than 4% essentially reflect full employment. So we really are in a situation of a very tight job market. I think everybody knows that. Our employment numbers are relatively high, but I'm going to come back to the labor force participation rate here because that is a point of opportunity for us. We know that right now there are thousands of jobs going unfilled, but I also want to talk about what's coming. And most of these jobs with these projects that I have listed here have not yet appeared in our economy. These are these are jobs that are going to come to Louisiana, but they are not here yet. A lot of this is a result of federal funding, but not all of it. That is not the entire story here. So we have the broadband expansion. Those contracts just went out a couple of weeks ago. So those are jobs that are about to hit, but they're not quite here yet. We have a lot of the coastal restoration work that's getting bid out right now. We've talked to you recently about the Mid-Barataria sediment diversion, and that's a big project, but it's just one project. There's a whole lot more that's going to be coming. We've got a lot of funding coming in for clean water systems, really transforming municipal water systems around this. Waste management is also part of that picture. There is also funding for capping orphan wells that we need to bear in mind. We're building a bridge across the Mississippi. We've got a lot of other bridges. We've got a lot of roadways that are being built. We talked to you recently about H2 the Future, the Build Back Better grant received by GNO Inc. $75 million, including the state portion to support clean hydrogen for our industrial corridor. We've got the energy story, which is complicated. Maritime is out there. And then I really want to emphasize this piece. We've got a huge industrial expansion underway. This is economic growth that is not necessarily directly spurred by federal or state funding. This is something that is underlying, and we must be able to support that growth even while we've got a whole lot going on in the federally funded and state funded space. And then a final note that the Inflation Reduction Act requires registered apprenticeships as part of its picture. And Louisiana right now doesn't have the footprint of registered apprenticeships to be sure that we can meet the needs of the Inflation Reduction Act. I'm going to go back to the labor force participation rate. because this story that I was just telling is tremendous in terms of the opportunity that it provides to Louisiana, but it's also a little intimidating because we are going to need to find a whole lot of workers to support these jobs. I do also want to emphasize that the skill sets needed across the board for these projects are very similar. So the folks that are executing on these projects are going to be pulling from a lot of the same people, and in many cases, using a lot of the same contractors. So we need to bear this in mind, that this is sort of one big project. The labor force participation rate here in Louisiana is actually fairly low. The national average is over 62%, and some states go up to 71% of their labor force participating. We need to ask ourselves why it's low here, because that's something we're going to need to look at if we're going to address this challenge fully and put as many of our citizens to work as we possibly can. And I had the opportunity recently to attend a presentation by Adrian Slack of the New Orleans Fed. And the Fed is the one that really does the analysis on the labor force participation rates. When they look at the Louisiana data, where there is a clear opportunity is we've got a whole lot of people that are not in the labor force right now. And the reason why they're not is family responsibilities. This is a story to a certain extent about the pandemic and about women. That's not the whole story, but that's a major opportunity there, is to get a whole bunch more folks back into the workforce by confronting that issue. And we as LCTCS just need to open our doors a little bit wider to make sure that we are able to get the folks in to our programs who can take these jobs and fulfill the economic potential that these jobs offer. What we're talking about is a major expansion and retargeting of our programs. I'm going to talk about that more specifically in a moment. A focus on strategic planning at the state level and at the regional level, using our partnerships with economic developers, with workforce developers around the state, and understanding where things are different and also where things are the same around the state in terms of the needs. We're focusing very tightly on economic impact to our communities. If we are not able to fill the workforce demands of these projects, the economic opportunity that they offer to our state will not be fully realized. So we need to make sure that we're very strategically focused on those programs, those skill sets that can help to drive economic growth for our communities and have an impact on the individual. Get people into the workforce if they're not there already, advance them in the workforce if they are there already, and make sure that they are ready to be productive and earn the wages that we know that they deserve. And then finally, I know all of you are familiar with our commitment to performance-based funding and making sure that we're directing our funding based on results and not on promises. So this takes us to the Louisiana Infrastructure Skills Academy concept. The idea here is that we need to be approaching these workforce challenges as a single big challenge, or if you want to think about it slightly differently, 8 or 9 regional challenges that have some flavors that are different from one another, depending on where you are in the state. But if we don't approach this challenge in a coordinated and sophisticated way, we run the risk of meeting pieces of the challenge, but not meeting the full opportunity that we have in front of us. We have taken the total $20 million, $10 million from Reboot 2.0 and $10 million from the Broadband Expansion Fund, and essentially conceptualized that as funding for the Infrastructure Skills Academy. I want to emphasize the Louisiana Infrastructure Skills Academy is not a building, and it is not a series of buildings or anything like that. This is a concept. This is a framework that helps to organize our approach to the challenge and helps us tell the story. And a lot of this is going to be telling the story of the opportunity that's out there and making sure that our people understand what this means for them as individuals and as communities. So that's the concept there. And there will also need to be an emphasis on highly effective learning methodologies, including apprenticeships, as we talked about with the Inflation Reduction Act, but also other types of innovative educational delivery models that many of our chancellors here in the room have really put a lot of work into developing. So that's essentially the structure of the Louisiana Infrastructure Skills Academy. There's a lot more to come. We want to introduce this to you. Like we told you, the White House kind of spoilered us a little bit on this, but we like that, right? We like that recognition. But there will be a lot more development of this idea. I mentioned Reboot 2.0. I do just want to let you know about some of the first quarter results that we achieved from the funding for Reboot 2.0. Reboot 1.0, you may recall, was really our pandemic reemployment initiative. This time around, we focused our colleges very heavily on infrastructure skills, especially CDLs and heavy equipment operators. In the first quarter, so this is just 3 months, in the first quarter of Reboot 2.0, we did produce almost 200 CDLs, which is a really dramatic increase from where we have been. And again, this is just that first quarter. So we're expecting some really tremendous results out of this as we move forward through the year. Over 100 heavy equipment operators produced. That's a very significant number of people who are highly in demand. When I've been sharing these data with a lot of our industry partners, they are really excited. So I do want to congratulate our colleges on this. Lots of welding credentials, lots of electrical and instrumentation, a lot of IT credentials, including a lot of cybersecurity credentials, which are absolutely infrastructure credentials, and then many others that are directly relevant to this work. So I'll wrap up there and see if there are any questions.
And ask if there are any questions, Madam Chair.
So the NCCER that you just, what does that stand for?
I completely apologize. I know some folks in the room are super familiar with that, but I know not everybody is. It's the National Center for Construction Education and Research. So the core program that they have sort of provides the foundation in the skilled trades, and then folks can specialize later as they move up the line. So that sort of sets them on the track for the
It
skilled
was the
trades.
largest number. That's why I was curious.
Yeah, and that also includes their site safety technician credential. These are the ones that sort of are foundational and get people up the line to the more advanced credentials.
Then the other question was, and you may have covered it, inverted degree program.
Yes. So that is where folks can get their technical coursework done first. So they're absolutely ready to go to work. And then they can complete the general education coursework to get the degree, but they're already credentialed in the technical skills and they're ready to go to work before they need to go through that. Yep.
Questions?
Yeah, I have some questions, Monty. Thanks. So you had mentioned earlier that the labor participation rate was low in Louisiana, and you thought due in part to the pandemic and particularly the hit on women who.
And it's actually, I should be clear about that. It's not much lower overall than it was before the pandemic.
Ask that.
Yeah, it isn't really. It's always been historically low in Louisiana, and women have always been a part of that story. So labor force participation rates among women have always been low here. We do know that the childcare issue was exacerbated by the pandemic. A lot of existing childcare providers are no longer in business.
So we think about the current participants in the Reboot 2.0. Are we also looking at the data in terms of representation of women? And then also how can we mitigate against some of the challenges you noted?
We had a strategic planning session with our group last week, and the challenge of improving women's completion rates in the CDL programs and the heavy equipment operator programs in particular was raised. So we are working where we want it to be right now, but yes, we are looking at the data and making sure we work towards that. That's an excellent.
The questions? Yes, sir.
Erica asked a couple of questions, and I had the other observation I got is one of the things we've observed recently, right, is that our enrollment is heavily tilted towards ladies, right? And that's something we've talked about either at this board level, Dr. Sullivan, or perhaps in other conversations. I know that certainly has been the case in the school in my town. That's not the same as the labor participation rate, but it certainly seems like we are servicing a lot of ladies, much more ladies than men, let's put it that way, at our institutions. And that been one of the conundrums, is that where are all the fellas that ought to be coming back and going to school? So that's an interesting dynamic that you make the observation about the labor participation rate, and yet our enrollment somewhat reflects a greater participation by ladies.
There are some explanations behind that I
Excuse me.
I'm happy to chat with folks about that offline. But I will say that a lot of the women on our campuses are not necessarily in the programs that lead directly to these jobs. But these jobs are critical for economic growth, and they offer excellent wages. And so building women's participation in these programs is going to be an important part of the story.
Doubt, and I appreciate your comment. I want to go back and remind the board of some of the data that we learned about over the last 3 to 4 years, and particularly around the equity issue, but also around the male-female participation rates in the different versions of the mission. So recall that we are typically 2/3 female. So the average credit enrolled student is female, 27, one dependent at least at home, and typically one job. The average student enrolled in the workforce non-credit programs like Reboot, 36, white, male. Let that sink in for a second. The reason for that is really, really clear in my mind. That is because the federal government sponsors students to attend college in the traditional sense in credit enrolled programs. Unfortunately, the federal government has, as of yet, not provided funding for workforce non-credit. It has been in specific tranches of funds that have come from the state, like this one. So it raises a really interesting question. Nationally, you read all the headlines about how enrollment is down in community colleges. No, enrollment is down in credit enrollment in community colleges. But what we're seeing is students are voting with their feet. They're showing up in shorter term programs that have greater output in terms of their earnings on the market. So this program is one that I think will have a long-term impact for us. This is a place where we can most directly as a college system target one of the biggest challenges we've had for generations. That's workforce participation rates. How can we as a state survive financially when only 58% of our people are contributing to the economy? 42% are not. Let that sink in for a second. So every year, every spring, when we go down to the Capitol to fight over budgets, this is the key issue. If people are not working and contributing to the economy, then we are not seeing Louisiana advance. We got a role in that. Louisiana Infrastructure Skills Academy is a huge part of solving that challenge. So any other questions from members of the board? Susie, thank you very much. Well done. Very well done.
Excellent job. Thank you.
All right. With that, Madam Chair, I will turn to Supervisor Hardy for a point of privilege that I missed, and I apologize, but I certainly want to make sure that you have the opportunity to share this one.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sullivan. I just want to say a few words about Chair Mount. As most of you know, Chair Mount has served as a state senator. She served as mayor of the city of Lake Charles. She's been a strong member of this board, currently serving as chair, and let me tell you, she keeps us straight. But I want to announce that this week, she was named to the committee, the Finance and Audit Committee of the Association of Community College Trustees. Now, let me tell you what that means. Before you can run for the board of ACCT, it is required that you serve 1 year on finance and audit. That's a committee under the board. As past Secretary Treasurer, I actually was the chair of that committee, and that's where the real work takes place. So in addition to congratulations, Chair Mount, I just want to say, as I sit as vice chair, I feel that our money and investments are going to be in very good hands having you serve on that committee. So I just want to offer congratulations, and I'm honored to have you there watching my back. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Tim. I look forward to working with you and following your leadership very much. You're making a true difference. All right, on to general action items. ask Supervisor Hardy to present the academic action item for consideration by the board.
Yeah, the other Supervisor Hardy. Madam Chair, we have one academic action item, and this is accreditation update. I believe Dr. Sullivan will add a little bit more context and invite speakers.
I've been waiting for this one for a long time. Chancellor Sawtelle, Chancellor Metter, if the two of you will join us at the table, I believe. Also, let's see, is it Mr. Tulak, right? Would you join us as well? I think board members, you have become accustomed to hearing an accreditation update at each board meeting from these two institutions. Today, we have a substantive update, perhaps I'll say it that way, Chancellor, not to spoil the surprise for the group. But perhaps we can begin with Chancellor Sawtelle and talk us through the latest update for Central Louisiana Technical Community College.
Sir, good morning, President Sullivan, members of the board, Chair Mount. Before I begin, I'd like to recognize three of our team that are here coincidentally that were instrumental in the good news that we're about to deliver today. Our Executive Vice Chancellor, Dr. Heather Poole. In addition, our Vice Chancellor of Finance and Administration, Ms. Amanda Kane, and our Director of Library Services and Social Media, Ms. Danny Von Tucker, who is a part of LLA. And it's with great pride that we report the progress on our pursuit of SAC-COC accreditation. When we reported last, we were waiting for our legislative audit, which in and of itself was a minor miracle because I want to thank Dr. Sullivan and Mr. Marine and Mr. Redmond. We were able to upfront our legislative audit several months in advance, and LLA was wonderful in getting us to the finish line so that we could submit it for December consideration. So we're very, very grateful for that. And in addition to that, you may recall that we were still awaiting word from the United States Department of Education. I really want to thank Dr. Sullivan for his pursuit of getting to that point. We had to have permission from the federal government for the first time ever to even pursue SACs, which was very new. And they came through, but I dare say, had it not been for Dr. Sullivan's engagement with them, that might not have happened. We are pleased to share that as of yesterday, it was made official by the SAC-COC board that we are authorized for a candidacy committee visit in the spring of 2023, as early as. Thank you very, very much. It was at this meeting that our team began to connect with members of the expanded SAC-COC team for a meeting with them in early January so we can identify a date as early as spring 2023. And then if that is successful, which we're hoping that it is, that it will go before a June review. And then following that, we'll determine when the final visit will be. It's really with great gratitude that I want to thank so many, President Sullivan, Board Chair Mount, the members of our board, system staff like Mr. Bill Tulak, all those across Louisiana's community and technical colleges that took the time to make our pursuit their own pursuit, for they saw the greater good in it. And that was chancellors, vice chancellors, subject matter experts from across Louisiana. And I'd especially like to thank our CLTCC team who worked tirelessly and efficiently and have done everything that they could, and they are even more enthusiastic about this pursuit. The journey is still in motion, but with this news, we're even more focused and more enthusiastic about what we're doing, not for the pursuit of just the goal line, but for the opportunity that it's going to provide for students across Central Louisiana, for our business and industry, for our stakeholders like Louisiana Central, the Rapides Foundation, the Chamber, and many, many business and industries that have been supportive of this. And as mentioned earlier by my dear friend, Chancellor Quentin Taylor, this journey started with Dr. Renee Cintron. And every success that we have, it has his fingerprints on it, and his influence, his leadership, and his support will resonate for decades to come. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Sullivan, I want to make some context here. SAC-COC does not authorize a visit unless they think that everything is in place for a successful visit. So they've reviewed everything they're going to review. And so this is a big step. The authorization, it's just not we're going to come check. They've looked and they like what they see, and we're looking for good things to happen.
If I may, thank you for that, Bill, because I think that's an important point. Chancellor, can you remind this board of the time frame with which you arrived at Central Louisiana Technical Community College?
Yes, sir. As you will recall, in 2011, you asked me to be interim regional director at that time. In 2012, we became a community technical college by the legislative motion. And then I returned to the college almost 8 years to the day, December 11th. Two wonderful anniversaries since this is being recorded, my wedding anniversary to my wife and my return to CLTCC.
Glad you put them in that order.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Supervisor Smith. And so when we returned, we were, as you will recall, we were assessing where we were and where we needed to be. So it's been almost 8 years since we put our hand in motion. Mr. Bill Tulak joined us in March of 2015, and we had to make some adjustments in terms of our COE, Council on Occupational Education, just our processes, but then our team visit, get past that, which we had one finding and one commendation last year. And then, but along the way, we have been working diligently towards this part of the journey.
The point for asking that question is this. 10 years ago, Central Louisiana Technical Community College probably couldn't have gotten a response to a letter from SACS. Today, 10 years later, that institution is different. And Chancellor, you said it very well. It is the people of Central Louisiana who will benefit the most. This board owes a tremendous debt of gratitude to you and to the team at Central Louisiana Technical Community College. We could not be more proud of what you have accomplished. I'll be frank with you. 10 years ago, I wondered if it was possible. But today, here we sit on the edge of accomplishing something that many thought couldn't happen. That happened because of leadership and hard work. Chancellor, thank you.
Thank you, President Sullivan. It's been famously said at this table before that if you see a turtle on a fence post, it did not get there on its own. Thank you for that pearl of wisdom, Supervisor Murphy. And if you looked up that phrase in the dictionary, you would see the success. So thank you, sir. Thank you to this board.
Absolutely. If we can, let's turn to Chancellor Matter.
Well, I must begin by thanking Chancellor Saltel and his team for paving the way for us, because many of the roadblocks that he spoke of, he has resolved, solved, found ways around them, over them, through them, that is going to benefit us in the months and years ahead. So we're behind them in this process, but it's a process that we're learning from things from. So it's kind of a new ground we're all working with here, because Central had to deal with COE and SACS at the same time, much the same process we're under right now. So there's a juggling act that goes on. Just to kind of update you where you're at, there's so many people that's helped us along the way. Bill Tulak come in and worked with us, and Vice Chancellor Jada Spillers over there is stepped in and about this time last year and started working on it with her and Bill Tulak. They transformed the process and got us over the threshold. So last summer we put our application in, and the way it has been working is the SACS people came back to us and said, look, we want to keep working with Central and get them over the threshold past this board meeting, which happened last week, and we're going to call you back. So we expect any day to have a call back from SACS as they start to review our application. In the spring months, we'll continue to work through any revisions. And it is our hope that they will have a successful review of our application at their June board meeting. That's up to them. To make this all happen, there's some other pieces that have to come together. We have a full scope audit underway. Our third now is underway, and our CFO has bald spots and pulling her hair out, which is part of it. But they're working hard to get this done. So we will have a March report back from the legislative auditors. We expect that to be a good report, which is going to be required before SACS will review us in June. So all these pieces have to work together. It's the same process that Central has gone through about a year ahead of us. So we're working there. In addition to that, the college is undergoing APME accreditation for our instrumentation department in the spring. For instrumentation to continue to be successful, we got to get that threshold passed. And COE must be continued until we get SACS done. So we have a self-study due in July for COE with a team visit in September of 23 from COE. So there's a lot of academic accreditation stuff going on. And again, I think Vice Chancellor Spillers, make sure she hasn't left the room on me, for leading those efforts up. And she's jumped in with both feet and made things happen. And I couldn't say more thank yous to so many people. And again, Chancellor Sawtelle, thank you because you've accomplished some things that we didn't know what we were going to do. Thank you.
Also noted that Chancellor Wainwright, who was the last chancellor, if you recall, to sit at this table and have such a conversation. I know that he's left the room, but certainly someone that has provided a great deal of leadership around this issue for our colleges as they walk through accreditation. So with that, thank you to each one of you. Congratulations again to the team at Central, and I will turn back to you, Mr. Chair.
Next, we'll call on Supervisor Salah to present the facilities action item for consideration by the board.
Thank you, Chairman. It'll be the disposal of property of South Louisiana Community College at the Opelousas campus. Joe, you help us with this?
Sir, good morning. The item we have before you today relates to a house on pilings at the Opelousas campus that was bought in 2000, pretty much in the early stages of the LCTCS. Unfortunately, and for still unknown reasons, a fire occurred at that structure and pretty much burnt it to the ground. There was emergency procedures put in place with the division facility planning to isolate the area, get it stabilized, and start removal of that building. It raised questions about two other structures on that location, on that campus, with regards to what we're going to do with those as well. They are old buildings, old houses, I'll say that, that are currently boarded up and in disrepair. And the intent was always to remove those for parking space for the campus. So we are asking permission for you to, in essence, the campus wants to sell the one house to get at that on the market. We have people who are interested in it, while at the same time disposing of the two other buildings located on campus to use it for parking for the campus. As such, staff recommends the board authorize the president and the chancellor of South Louisiana Community College to negotiate and execute all documents necessary to demolish 3 buildings at the Opelousas campus and to dispose of a portion of the Opelousas site through sale, lease, transfer, or trade. Lease or conveyance documents for this potential disposal must be filed with the local clerk of courts and the state land office.
The recommendation.
Motion by Roman Hardy, second by Spahn.
The opposition? Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you, Supervisor. Next, we'll call on Supervisor Jackson to present the finance action item for consideration by the board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First item.
Mr. Jackson, could you talk a little bit closer into the mic?
Talk.
When it's dead.
You almost have to eat it. You have to get close.
Our first item is Board of Regents matched endowed scholarship and professorship.
Sir, just to give a little context.
There's a mic issue.
Context and history for some of the newer members. There exists a fund from an oil settlement that was done, offshore settlement that was done in the 80s with the state that provided funds for both Bessie and the Board of Regents. In the case for the Board of Regents, these funds are used in many cases to provide matching funds to private donations for endowed professorships and or scholarships. In this case, we have before you many donations that have been provided by individuals and companies for 10 of our 12 colleges that in essence are a total of $1,120,000. If approved by the Board of Regents for matching funds, it'll provide an additional $1 million to that to bring the total increase in net assets to $2,130,000. So before we submit those, it actually has to go before the board for action and approval to move forward to go to the Board of Regents for their consideration. As such, staff recommends the board approve the endowed scholarships and professorships presented in the board memo totaling endowments of $1,120,000 in private donations. If matches are approved by the Board of Regents, endowments presented will secure an additional $1,010,000 in state funding for a total increase in net assets of $2,130,000.
Mr. Joe, we've heard the recommendation from staff. Is there a motion?
Motion by Mr. Salah, a second by Mr. Hardy Roman.
Questions? Are there any objections to the motion? Hearing none. Madam Chair, is authorization of naming opportunities at Fletcher Technical Community College.
Yes, sir. We have before you, as has been done in the past, we have a policy, a system policy related to naming rights at our institutions, of which Fletcher has a policy in place as well. We are bringing before you the naming rights of 5 individuals or companies in the amount of $2,225,000. So with that said, I'll read the recommendation. Staff recommends the board authorize the naming opportunities for Fletcher Technical Community College, which is in accordance with board policy 4.003, naming of LCTCS facilities. Barker Buick GMC Conference Room, location Fletcher Main Campus, Chancellor's Conference Room. Richard Dickey Barker Automotive Lab, location at the Fletcher Main Campus Automotive Training Lab. L'Oreal Foundation Education Center, location at the Thibodeau facility, L'Oreal Education Center, which houses a Work Ready U program. Ochsner Health Nursing Wing. This is the Fletcher Main Campus, the nursing wing. And I believe this amount is $1 million. Terrebonne General Health System Nursing Wing, again at the Fletcher Main Campus Nursing Wing, also for $1 million. The establishment of these naming opportunities for a total of $2,225,000 allow Fletcher to build long-term sustainability through endowments for faculty, student scholarships, technology, equipment, and program expansion, all in an effort to increase college access and success for students.
Thank you, Joe. We've heard the recommendation from staff. Is there a motion?
Motion by Mr. Smith and second by Mr. Salat.
Any questions? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion carries. Services contract between LCTCS System Board of Supervisors.
Sir, as you may know, we have been engaged in an evaluation of energy as a service from a partner, an industry partner. This partner has been engaged in other initiatives throughout the state involving other universities and state agencies. As part of that process, we have sought out financial advice from a financial advisor who represents us, not that individual, but us, and is here to protect our interests from his perspective or their perspective. That being Sisson is the name of the company. We are bringing before you a contract that in essence is a fee for service that provides for their oversight. First off, it provides for their analysis as the process begins. It will provide for a report. It will provide for a final report if the board continues to go down that path and wishes us to continue. And finally, if there's any bonding that takes place on the ultimate final stage, they will continue their services. So again, those services, even though the contract is for $300,000, it's basically set up in tranches of $65,000 at each major milestone. And so if you decide to proceed, we go down that path. But at any point in time, if we cease services or do not want to continue going down that path, the contract is paid up to that point in time. So as such, staff recommends that the board approve a professional services contract between Louisiana Community and Technical Colleges System Board of Supervisors and Sisson Securities Corporation effective December 7th, 2022 through December 31st, 2025. This contract is subject to the approval of the Office of State Procurement.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Question.
Sure.
Mr. Murphy, we do need a motion and a second before we can have a question. So is a motion by Ms. McConduit and a second by Mr. Smith. And now the floor is open for your question.
Go ahead, Nikki.
Explain to me, Joey. Let me see if I'm correct. This contract is.
Keep talking to the mic, please.
This contract is going to be with Sisson.
Sir.
And what's the length of the contract?
It's 3 years, I believe, till 2025.
So it's going to be a contract with the organization that presented to us that they would, is this an organization that's working towards maintenance on our facilities?
No, sir. No, sir.
All right. What is the organization that they're going to be the watchdog for?
They're going to be watching our back. They're going to be bird dogging us, in essence, being, to give you a little bit of history, we've had some history with Sisson with our Act 360 and 391 projects. So they know our system, they know our colleges, our infrastructures and buildings and so forth. They've always represented the board's interests. And what we are asking them basically to expand that role scope as it relates to this energy as a service initiative. They are basically our protection to make sure that our interests are protected to the extent possible. So they're working on our behalf in terms of analyzing and evaluating the merits of those energy as a service proposals coming in.
Energy services. Okay, thank you.
The questions? You've heard the motion. Is there any objection to the motion?
Any additional questions, Mr. Salath?
I believe that's the finance report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Jackson. Supervisor Tim Hardy presents the personnel action items for consideration by the board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I request a motion to enter into executive session to discuss items I.6 through I.10. Is there a motion?
Motion by Mr. Jackson and a second by Mr. Smith.
After those, I request that we have a roll call vote to enter into executive session.
Sir, happy to do so. As a reminder, this is a vote yes or no to enter executive session. Supervisor Mount,
Yes.
Supervisor Jackson,
Yes.
Supervisor Roman Hardy,
Yes.
Supervisor Burke, Supervisor Tim Hardy,
Yes.
Supervisor Lee, Supervisor McConduit, Supervisor Murphy,
Yes.
Supervisor Salath, Supervisor Smith, Supervisor Spahn, Supervisor Jimenez. Madam Chairwoman, we do have a unanimous vote to enter executive session at 11:27 a.m.
Thank you.
And then would you please put the executive session tile up on YouTube and make sure it's on mute?
Yeah, everybody's all right. Look, from what I know, this is yours. I don't know.
Oh, any of them. Either of them.
Well, yeah, but I don't want to take somebody else's.
This one, Mr. Murphy.
That one? Okay, thank you.
No, I finished my business degree back in December last year.
Exactly.
I continue for office technology and accounting.
Madam Chairwoman, if okay with you, I'd like to call roll to reestablish a quorum. Brandon, can you confirm we're back live? Thank you. Supervisor Mount,
Yes.
Supervisor Hardy, I'm sorry, Supervisor Jackson. Yes. Supervisor Roman Hardy, Supervisor Bork, Supervisor Tim Hardy, Supervisor Lee, Supervisor McConduit, Supervisor Murphy, Supervisor Price is absent and has been since the start of the meeting. Supervisor Salah, Supervisor Smith, Supervisor Spahn, Supervisor Jimenez. Madam Chairwoman, we do have a quorum of the board present and exit executive session at 12:23.
Thank you. Supervisor Tim Hardy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, next, personnel actions pending in potential litigation. No decisions were made, updated without any decisions. Next, appointment of Chancellor of Northwest Louisiana Technical Community College, Dr. Sullivan.
Thank you, Supervisor Hardy. After a national search that included a broad pool of very talented individuals looking at Northwest Louisiana Technical Community College to follow the leadership of Chancellor Metter, we, in conducting that search, had nearly 40 applicants from across the country apply for that leadership role. We conducted semifinal round interviews of 9 candidates, final round interviews of 3 finalists. I want to acknowledge the great work by our ACCT colleague, Julie Golder, as well as Gina Doucette, who grabbed a hold of these 2 searches and has been the lead for us at the board office. Gina, thank you for the great work. I also want to thank Supervisor Tim Hardy, who has now conducted, I think, well over a dozen of these searches over the years. A lot of time, energy, and effort goes into them. So without further ado, I'll read the recommendation. Staff recommends the board appoint Dr. Jada Spillers as Chancellor of Northwest Louisiana Technical Community College with an employment contract effective January 1, 2023 through December 31st, 2026. Staff further recommends a fair and equitable chancellor package consisting of an annual base salary of $180,000, a housing allowance of $25,000, a vehicle allowance of $7,500, or the use of a college vehicle, a civic organizations allowance of $2,500, and an employer-sponsored deferred compensation package of $15,000 for a total compensation of $230,000.
Is there a motion?
Motion by Mr. Salas, second by Mr. Spawn.
Discussion? Objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Congratulations.
Dr. Spillers is not able to be with us. She was with us a few minutes ago, but I think as you guys are aware, she's a part of LLA and she's taking it very seriously this morning. So, or this afternoon now. So thank you to Dr. Spillers. I know that she will look forward to an opportunity to speak with the board at the next gathering.
And next, recommendation to appointment, Chancellor for River Parishes Community College, Dr. Sullivan.
Sir, following a national search, in fact, after an extended period of interim national search that netted nearly 50 applicants from across the country, we interviewed at the semifinal round level 10 very capable, talented individuals from across the country. I would say to you that this pool at River Parishes is perhaps the strongest pool we have seen as a system. That signals to me several things. Number one, it tells us that we're doing some good work and folks around the country are acknowledging that. Point number two that I think is equally important is that people are now beginning to look to move. People are willing to make a move today that perhaps in the midst of the pandemic, they weren't willing to move. That tells me good things on the horizon. We're excited about where we are in this search process. Following the search, staff recommends the board appoint Mr. Quentin Taylor as Chancellor of River Parishes Community College with an employment contract effective January 1, 2023 through December 31st, 2026. Staff further recommends a fair and equitable chancellor package consisting of an annual base salary of $190,000, a housing allowance of $25,000, a vehicle allowance of $7,500 or the use of a college vehicle, a civic organizations allowance of $2,500, and an employer-sponsored deferred compensation package of $20,000 for a total compensation package of $245,000.
Do I have a motion?
Motion by Ms. McConaughey, second by Mr. Jackson.
Any discussion? Are there objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Taylor.
Perhaps, Mr. Taylor, if you're in a position to do so. We hear you.
I
We
got
hear
it.
you.
I
Absolutely.
totally got it.
Thank you, sir.
Next item, LCTCS Chancellor Contract Recommendations.
Absolutely. As we are reviewing the chancellor contracts for the 10 positions that were seated prior to this board meeting, it became evident that we needed to identify or that we needed to extend the contract of 2 of our current chancellors, same terms, but extend the contract from a June 30 termination date to a December 31st termination date. And as such, the recommendation reads, staff recommends that the contracts for Chancellor Randall Esters of Louisiana Delta Community College and Chancellor Vincent June of South Louisiana Community College be extended by 6 months to align them time-wise with the other chancellors of the LCTCS. This action will allow the LCTCS Board of Supervisors the ability to review all chancellor contracts at the same time in December and provide the needed notice of 365 days prior to a recommendation of contract continuation.
We have a motion by Ms. McConaughey and a second by Mr. Hardy Roman.
Objections? Is there discussion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item, number 10, LCTCS System President Contract Recommendation. Chairman, do you want me to read the recommendation or do you want to handle that? Recommendation is as follows. Full statement. Due to Dr. Sullivan's recent exemplary performance evaluation and in accordance with the LCTCS board policy number 6.005, evaluation process for LCTCS president, the Personnel Committee requests that Dr. Sullivan's annual base pay be consistent with his current contract, which provides a salary increase of 2.5%. This will take his current annual base salary from $429,000 to $439,725, effective December 12th, 2022. In addition to base salary, Dr. Sullivan's housing allowance will remain at $50,000. His auto allowance will remain at $24,000, and his employer-sponsored deferred compensation.
Marty, can you, okay, I'm sorry, the mic went out for a second.
Oh,
It's back on now.
okay, resulting in a total compensation package of $570,725. We are also requesting that Mr. Joseph Marine, Vice President of Operations in the board office, be notified of this implementation. Do I have a motion?
Motion by Mr.
Do I have a second?
Murphy and a second by Mr. Jackson and everyone else.
Is there any
who raised their hand.
discussion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you, Dr. Sullivan, for all you do.
I echo
Now,
the comments
Ms.
made by Supervisor Tim Hardy, and it's just, I can't thank you enough for your fine leadership. You're the best.
Thank you.
If I may just add, and I don't want to prolong this, I have to hit the road to Shreveport, but let me just say what the multitasking Dr. Sullivan does, I actually don't know how he does it. Deal with individual board members, the legislature, local leaders, industry. Let me be blunt. All of this while, he doesn't want me to say this, I'll say it anyway, while he underwent sort of health challenges, while he was doing all of this. So I just can't say enough about how much I enjoy working with you and how much you do, not only for this board and this system, but for this state. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add and second the comments by Chair Mount and Tim Hardy. We got a bargain in this deal. And I just want to thank you, Monty. I mean, we literally, truly have one of the top 5% leaders in the country in Dr. Sullivan. And we are fortunate to have him in this system. And I thank you for all you do.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I just want to say thank you to the board. There's not a better job in America than the one that we get an opportunity to do right here. And that is because of the people, the board members, the team that we get an opportunity to work with every day. So thank you to each one of you. Thank you for the recognition and thank you for the very kind words. Appreciate it.
Any other comments? All right. All right. I want to just refer you to the updates and encourage you to review those. Those are included in your agenda. Is there any additional business to come before the board? All right. Any public comment?
Public comments, Ms. Mount.
Okay. Announcements. If you'll again, just have a great holiday, be with your family and enjoy how God has blessed us all. So I just want to wish you the very best in that regard. Secondly, you should have received an email from Sarah Klein-Peter in regards to No B4, which is they're going to include us with the LCTC email address. But what's important about that is you can go to that, and Sarah may need to better explain it, to do all the training we need to do before the 31st of December. So, and I'm not going to read all those. You can see them. They're quite a few.
And I do want to note for the record, those are listed just for everyone to know how many trainings you do every year, but y'all have done them throughout this year. And so I think the only outstanding training that may be for some of you is your ethics training, which is different than the tier 2.1 ethics form that you filled out over the summer. Everybody turned that in on time, and we thank you for that. This is the annual ethics that's required by the legislature that staff and board members do. And some of you have, majority of you have done it already, but we're putting this as a reminder for everyone that you guys do just as much work side as our staff does internally.
Any questions about that? All right, hearing none, then the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Salat, second by Mr. Spahn.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, that motion passes. We're adjourned.
The meeting is adjourned.
Happy
at
holiday,
12:35.
everyone.
Brandon, can you stop the meeting? Thank you.
Thank you, Willie.